Hello, I am a woman in my 40s, who witnessed the miserable end of people who constantly disrespected others. There are many people in the world who show respect and consideration, but there are just as many who belittle and look down on others. I believe the wounds we receive are deeper when the disrespect comes from people we know well, rather than from complete strangers. I was one of those who was constantly belittled by the very people I believed would be on my side. In the end, those people received the punishment they deserved for scorning me. I cannot describe the feeling of triumph I had when I saw those who caused me so many tears finally face such a humiliating downfall. I'm sure many of you have had similar experiences, and I hope my story can bring you some comfort. My family was very poor when I was young. My mother was quite ill and couldn't work, so my father raised my two siblings and me by working manual labor jobs. I was the oldest, with a younger brother, 3 years my junior, and a sister 5 years younger. Since my mother was sick, I took care of my younger siblings from an early age. My father worked tirelessly, day and night, just to make a living. But poverty only seemed to breed more poverty, and our lives never improved. I was a good student, often ranking in the top 5 in my class, but I ultimately had to give up on university due to our financial situation. Instead, after graduating high school, I was fortunate enough to get a job at a large company's production facility. From then on, I became the breadwinner of my family. I always worked hard with one thought in mind. I absolutely did not want to pass this poverty on to my siblings, so I worked every single month without a break, and most of my salary went to my family. I was, in essence, a child head of the household. Many of my colleagues had also joined the production line straight out of high school, and since we were all young, they were naturally interested in makeup, clothes, and other things. Whenever we had a day off, they would gather to go shopping at department stores and various places, but every time, I would only look on, never buying a single thing. My close colleagues would often ask me about it. Hey, Seo-yeon, why don't you ever buy anything? You never buy clothes or cosmetics whenever we go out. Where do you put all the money you work so hard for? Are you burying it somewhere? Don't say that. Seo-yeon sends all her money home, you know. Seo-yeon, even so, you're an adult now. Why do you send all your money home? Aren't you sad? You should wear some makeup and buy some clothes. I always replied, it's fine. I just work all the time, so what's the point of makeup or new clothes? I have nowhere to wear them. You guys go on and shop all you want. Of course, I wanted to go out, eat, and shop with my friends, too. But whenever I picked up a piece of clothing and checked the price, I would think, with this money, I could buy my siblings a filling meal, and that made it impossible for me to spend money recklessly. I saved diligently, even putting some into a savings account. Living a frugal life, eating at a fancy restaurant was a luxury I couldn't afford. Because of this, dating was also a luxury. Yet, I was so proud and happy to use the money I had painstakingly saved to send both my brother and sister to university. Although every day was difficult and overwhelming, I endured by thinking of my good-natured siblings and my parents, who always felt apologetic to me. As I persevered, I accumulated quite a few years of experience at the company, and my salary increased considerably. My brother and sister graduated from university and started their professional lives, which finally gave me a bit of breathing room. Then, when I was 29, I reached a major turning point in my life. I received a marriage proposal. My boyfriend at the time was a researcher at a public enterprise affiliate. We met through a mutual friend's introduction when I was 27 and started dating. My boyfriend liked me from the very beginning. I only went on that first date as a favor to my friend and honestly thought dating was out of the question for someone in my situation. I didn't even want to date, but my boyfriend persistently sought me out. Furthermore, even after I confessed my entire difficult situation, he didn't change his mind about me. That touched me deeply. Most people pitied me and saw my struggling with poverty as pitiful, but few had ever embraced me with such love. Thanks to his persistent courtship, I decided to date him. He was 5 years older than me, very sensitive, and gentle. Meeting him allowed me to briefly forget my reality. It's true what they say, love can make you blind. After a year of dating, he proposed, and I went to his house to greet his parents. I had no idea that day would be the moment I was violently woken up back to reality. The moment I passed the front door and greeted them, I heard my boyfriend's mother's cold voice. "Oh, so you've come to greet us? Come in and sit down." Her voice made it clear she was receiving an unwelcome guest, and I nervously stepped inside. I knelt down in front of the coffee table, in the middle of the living room, feeling like a criminal. My boyfriend's father sat opposite me, clearing his throat, and his mother watched me, her expression seeming to wait to see what I would say. I can't express how suffocating and terrifying that silence felt. After a long moment of silence, my boyfriend's father finally spoke, asking about my educational background. "So, I heard from Ji-hoon that you work at a factory. Did you get the job right after graduating from college?" "Oh, no, I didn't attend college. I got the job right after high school." At my words, my boyfriend's mother snorted and started to spew harsh words, like daggers. "You didn't go to college? Ji-hoon, don't you think this is too much? Your father and I said we'd respect your opinion, but this is unacceptable. A high school graduate." "Look, young lady, I didn't want to say this for Ji-hoon's sake, but our Ji-hoon graduated from a prestigious university and became a researcher. Isn't it too much to ask us to accept a daughter-in-law who hasn't even graduated from college, let alone high school?" "Mom, what are you talking about? She's not just working at any factory, it's a large corporation's production facility. She's probably working at a place many people want to go. Why are you saying such things? Did you call her here just to say this?" "Ugh, yes. I called her because you kept making a fuss about marrying her, and I wanted to see her face. But this is just too much." "Seo-yun, was it? I'm an adult, so I'll be direct. Put yourself in our shoes 1,000 times. Would you want to welcome a daughter-in-law who is a high school graduate, and works at a factory after we sent our son to university and made him a researcher? Even you must think it's not right. What are we supposed to do with such a difference in status?" My boyfriend tried to stop his mother, but she wouldn't stop, continuing to drive daggers into me. "Ji-hoon, you stay out of this. You brought this kind of girl here. Our son is kind and has a tender heart, which is why he met you all this time. But people should stick to their own kind to live well. You're old enough to know that, aren't you? This is our opinion, so think carefully and end things." "Mom, what are you saying? End things? It's fine. We're going to get married without talking to you and Dad, so just accept that." In the end, my boyfriend suddenly stood up and dragged me out of that house. Even as we left, I couldn't shake the shock. I was so surprised and angry that someone could say such terrible things right to my face. It's true that when you're completely shocked, you can't do anything. As I left their house without saying a proper word, a million thoughts raced through my mind. My boyfriend was a wonderful person, and I felt I could spend my entire life with him, but I honestly didn't think I could respect and live with parents-in-law like that. I had worked so hard to maintain my position, and I felt they were utterly dismissing my life. I decided that this was unacceptable and broke up with my boyfriend. I believed it was better not to have a marriage where I wasn't welcome, but when I announced I couldn't marry him, my boyfriend started coming to see me every day, whether I was leaving for work in the morning, coming home in the evening, or even if I briefly looked out the window late at night, he would be standing outside, shivering. He came to see me every day for about a month, and when I remained cold, his pent-up sorrow seemed to explode. I felt like crying too, but I held back my tears until the end. I was afraid that if I cried, he wouldn't be able to let go. After that, my boyfriend stopped coming to see me. No, he couldn't come anymore. But about a week later, as I was leaving work, I saw a familiar face waiting in front of the company. It was my boyfriend's mother. As soon as she spotted me, she rushed over with a genuinely delighted expression. She asked if I had a moment, pleading with me to spare some time. Curious about why she had come all this way, I went with her to a nearby cafe, and there, I heard something completely unexpected. She told me she would allow the marriage. Seo-yun, I am truly sorry. As you know, our son has been like the head of our household. His father doesn't work and just idles away at home. Plus, he has 2 younger siblings. Our son grew up really struggling all by himself. Now that things are finally starting to look up for him, I heard he was going to marry a woman who grew up similarly. I can't tell you how heartbroken I was to hear that. I'm truly sorry. It's fine, Mother. It's all in the past now. No, don't end it. Ji-hoon says he absolutely cannot live without you. He says he will never marry and live alone if it's not you. For the past few days, he hasn't spoken to us, hasn't eaten, and only goes to work. I didn't know he liked you that much. I was just being greedy, wanting my son to have a better environment, and be happier when starting a family. I'm truly sorry. It sounds like you struggled and endured a lot, too. I think I was too quick to judge. Please, reconsider the marriage. I'm apologizing to you like this. Won't you marry my son? I was completely shocked by the expression of the mother-in-law, who was tearfully pleading with me. In fact, my boyfriend's family was not well off either. His father had been a freight truck driver, but lost his license due to a DUI a few years prior and was fired. Since then, he hadn't worked. His mother worked at a market, but I heard she also lost her job there due to some incident. From then on, my boyfriend was the one struggling to maintain the family's livelihood. When his mother heard he was marrying a woman in a similar situation, she didn't like it. She opposed the marriage, but after realizing the depth of her son's genuine feelings, she said she changed her mind and apologized sincerely. Her genuine plea moved me a lot. I knew better than anyone the actions and sincerity my boyfriend had shown me, so I couldn't help but be swayed. Ultimately, I reversed the firm decision I had made. I started meeting my boyfriend again, and we quickly prepared for and had our wedding. The early days of our marriage were incredibly happy. My in-laws never spoke disrespectfully to me, and my husband cherished me, so we enjoyed a truly happy life. However, there was one major argument early in our marriage. It was less than a year after we got married, and I started getting the strange feeling that my husband's salary was decreasing. So one day, I asked to see his bank statements. He seemed a little flustered, but when I persisted, he eventually showed them to me. When I looked at his bank details, I was completely shocked. I found out that my husband had been sending money to his parents' house every month. I was so dumbfounded that I asked my husband, "What is this? Since when have you been sending them money regularly? We only send money for holidays, not every month. How could you do this without telling me?" "I'm sorry, I was going to tell you, but Mom said things were too hard. You know that Dad doesn't work, and Mom is struggling to make ends meet by working various restaurant jobs. Mom kept saying she was strapped for cash. I talked to her multiple times, but she kept asking for just one more month, so I couldn't help it. I'm sorry." "Then you should have told me. Aren't we a couple? You have to discuss things like this." "Okay, I'll talk to Mom properly again, don't worry." Initially, my husband confronted his mother, and we agreed to stop the monthly allowance. But even when my husband told her, my mother-in-law refused to accept it. To be honest, neither of my brothers-in-law were working, and my mother-in-law was solely responsible for the livelihood. I knew it wasn't easy for her, especially given her age, since my own parents were also older, and were living off the monthly expenses provided by my brother and sister. I decided that opposing this indefinitely wasn't the right path. So, after a few arguments, I made a decision. "Honey, I don't think this can work. I think your parents will struggle too much if you don't give them an allowance. Instead, let's give the same allowance to both our parents. As you know, my parents are struggling too, so let's send them the same amount." "The same?" Won't the amount be too big then? Of course, we can't send a lot, but only for as long as we can afford it. You need to talk to your parents about this clearly. I'll talk to mine too. So, from then on, we sent an allowance of $500,000, about $375 to both sides of the family. It wasn't a small amount, but I thought that if we were extra frugal, we could manage, and both sets of parents could live a little more comfortably. My mother-in-law grumbled that it was too little, but I decided it was all we could do. 2 years later, I gave birth to our son. Something truly touching happened around that time. About 3 days after giving birth, my brother and sister came to visit. They came in with a lot of baby supplies, like diapers and clothes, and then handed me a thick envelope. It was packed with money. I was so surprised that I asked them, "What is this? What's with all this money? Why the sudden gift?" "This is for you, sis. We really wanted to do something big for you, but we felt bad that we couldn't do much when you got married. We're so glad we can do this now that our nephew is born." "Oh, no, where did you two get all this money? You've already bought so many gifts. Sis, you've done so much for us. It's nothing. We'll pay you back slowly. You've given us so much, and we can't pay it back all at once. Instead, we'll give it back to you, little by little." "No, I didn't do it to get it back from you. I did it because we're family." "What are you talking about, sis? You deserve to receive all of this, even if we are family. No one would sacrifice everything for their siblings the way you did. The fact that we are working professionals and living well is all thanks to you." As my siblings hugged me, I couldn't help but cry a lot. The fact that they had grown up so well made all the hardships I had gone through melt away like snow. However, unlike my siblings, my in-laws and brothers-in-law were a headache. They would constantly ask for money whenever they saw me. "Sister-in-law, just $50,000, about $37 please." My friends asked to meet up, but mom says she has no money. "So, could you give me some? $50,000? I don't have cash on me right now." "What? You work at a big corporation's production facility, and you don't have any cash? Just give it to me, sister-in-law. I see you don't spend money on yourself. What are you going to do with all that saved money? You should share it in times like this. I really don't have it. And didn't you ask your brother for money yesterday? What did you do with that money?" "Ugh, what do you think? I spent it all, of course. If you don't want to give it, just say so. Don't change the subject like that." "Ugh, fine. You're so petty." "I guess not." Despite being around the same age as my siblings, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were incredibly immature. They had no intention of settling down to a job, constantly quitting and changing jobs, and weren't earning proper money. Moreover, whenever they ran out of money, they would naturally ask my husband for it. In the early years of our marriage, I thought they were just young and immature, but the problem wasn't limited to the siblings-in-law. When I occasionally visited my in-laws, my mother-in-law would always take me to the market. Since both my in-laws didn't have stable jobs, she would take me to the market and ask me to pay for the groceries. While it wasn't a huge amount of money, it still made me feel uneasy every time. Furthermore, the atmosphere at the market was always unpleasant. When I went with my mother-in-law, she was famous in the neighborhood. Her nickname was the Fighter. Whenever she entered a store, the vendors would speak to her curtly and defensively. "Hey, how much is this? Did you get any fresh vegetables today? Give me some of this. The price is the same. This is already cheap. You know we don't make any profit. If you want something cheaper, go buy it somewhere else. I just asked for the price. Why are you talking like that? Unbelievable." "All right, I won't haggle. Give me this. My daughter-in-law will pay for it." "Dear, pay for this and come over to the butcher shop." When my mother-in-law spoke like that, the vendor would sigh deeply, pack the goods, and hand the bag to me, saying, "Poor dear, how did you end up marrying into that family? That mother-in-law of yours is not easy. Everyone in this neighborhood knows her. How are you going to endure living with that family?" My mother-in-law would just laugh it off as a joke, pretending not to hear, but I could feel that the people at the market were speaking the truth. I guess my in-law's shamelessness was inherited from my mother-in-law. Still, my husband was faithful and affectionate after our first child was born, so I managed to overlook the troubles with the in-laws, telling myself that every couple experiences these issues. I continued to work hard, struggling for 10 long years. My son was now entering elementary school, and I became pregnant with our second child around that time. Naturally, I started thinking more seriously about our future plans. Since the beginning of our marriage, we had been renting. We moved a couple of times after our first child was born, and we were currently renting a 28 Pyong about 1,000 square feet apartment. It wasn't too small, but constantly having to move because of the lease was inconvenient. I had been striving to save money and live in a better place, but with the second baby on the way, I felt it was time to buy our own home. So, just before I turned 40, I finally became a homeowner. I didn't realize how truly happy and wonderful it would be to finally own a house. The moment I stepped into the house after moving in, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, thinking, this is finally my home. My own parents were thrilled. They even pooled their savings to buy us new appliances. My brother and sister also gave us a generous gift to celebrate our new home. However, my in-laws, who never contributed anything, not even a gift, made sure to brag about it all. My mother-in-law, especially, spoke as if my husband had bought the house all by himself. We invited the in-laws over to eat together after the move, and what they said made me speechless. "Oh, dear, you really hit the jackpot. Our son is so successful that you get to live in such a nice house. I heard it's so hard to buy a house these days. You are so lucky, so lucky." "Yes, sister-in-law, I was truly surprised when I walked in here. You need to treat my brother well, sister-in-law. It's only because of my brother that you could prepare such a nice new home. I'm really jealous of you." I was appalled to hear them constantly praise only their son, brother, and husband. It was even more ridiculous, because my husband's salary wasn't much different from mine. So, I responded casually, "Right? My husband hit the jackpot, too. I worked hard and saved every penny while raising the kids, so a day like this has finally come." I honestly wondered if we would ever buy a house since our salaries are similar, but everyone around us tells my husband how lucky he is to have found a good wife who manages the household so well. Isn't that right, honey? Of course, Mom. Everyone around me praises my wife. They say a wife who manages the household well is the best. I really did marry well. When my husband and I spoke like that, my mother-in-law and in-laws would just grumble and stop talking. I was simply dumbfounded that they could say such things, even though they clearly witnessed us both struggling to achieve this together. After that, I continued to work diligently. My first child was getting big, and with my second child just born, I had a lot on my plate, so I had to work even harder. As if fate was smiling upon us, our house's value kept rising. Finally, 3 years later, the value of our house increased by 300 million won, about $225,000. I didn't know about it, but one day, my husband suddenly brought it up after coming home from work. "Honey, did you hear? The value of this house increased by 300 million won since we bought it. Did you know?" "Really? Wow, it went up that much. I guess we bought it at the perfect time." "Exactly, we bought it well. The price went up. Honestly, even if we saved every penny we earn for several years, it's hard to save 300 million won, right? I guess this is why everyone talks about real estate." At first, I didn't know why my husband was suddenly talking about this, but I realized his intentions when I heard what he said next. My husband suddenly brought up the topic of the in-laws' allowance. So, I was thinking, how about we start sending 1 million won, about $750 to my parents' house? "What? What are you talking about? 1 million won? That's our monthly living expense. How can we send that?" Well, both your salary and mine have increased, and honestly, we save half of our income. Wouldn't it be good to take better care of both our parents starting now? Don't you think? It's like free money, anyway, so what's the harm? We made 300 million won. Since we're doing so well, we should share our good fortune with our families. Honey, we're not multimillionaires. Are you suggesting this just because the house value went up? The money is only yours if you sell the house or do something with it. We're going to live here for life, so what are you talking about? No, I refuse. I immediately rejected my husband's suggestion. It was clear that someone was pressuring him from behind. I agree that we should help our parents, as they are not financially secure, but shouldn't that depend on how they behave? My parents, at least, used the allowance sparingly, saved it for their retirement, and worked side jobs to make ends meet. My in-laws, however, were not like that at all. Although my mother-in-law worked sometimes, she didn't save, and my in-laws, even when they did work, only spent money on themselves, and didn't contribute a penny to the family. Yet, my mother-in-law always asked only my husband for money. I thought that was completely unreasonable, so I had no choice but to refuse. But as soon as I refused, my in-laws summoned us that weekend. Sure enough, the conversation about the allowance came up during dinner. Dear, you shouldn't live like that. How well have things gone for you since you bought that house? When you were looking at places, I was the one who told my son to go for that house. So, doesn't that mean I deserve some credit? I deserve some credit for the 300 million won increase, but I'm disappointed that you're being so petty about the allowance. Mother, we have 2 children, and we need to think about their future. Education costs a lot these days, and we don't have any guarantee that we can work forever. That's why I'm asking you to help us now. Then we won't have to burden you when we get older. Give us 2 million won, about $1,500 a month. No, 2.5 million won, about $1,875. We don't have retirement savings, so if you start giving it to us now, you won't have to bear the full burden later when we get older. We'll live on our own then. How about that? Anyway, you'll have to take care of us when we're old, so why not help us out starting now? I was utterly speechless at my mother-in-law's ridiculous logic. My husband and father-in-law remained silent, and the brother-in-law and sister-in-law chimed in with her absurd statement. That's right, sister-in-law, it's found money. Just give a generous allowance. If you take care of mom now, she won't ask for more later, right? We're family, after all. Yes, sister-in-law, families shouldn't act like this. You're still so stingy. What will the kids learn from seeing that? You should be generous. Since the house value went up by 300 million won, I would have given them 100 million won right away. I was so speechless and appalled to hear my in-laws and husband's siblings talk so carelessly, as if it wasn't their problem. This was clearly out of line, so I firmly rejected them. If you're going to talk like that, let's do this, brother-in-law and sister-in-law. You should also contribute to the allowance from your salary. I'll even accept a smaller amount than us. How about 300,000 won, about $225 each? What? 300,000 won? Where would we get that kind of money? Why don't you have it? You live here without paying living expenses and use your entire salary, don't you? No, we live with 4 people and still manage to send a monthly allowance. And you're asking us to send 2 million won? No, I mean, Oppa, my husband, is the eldest son, so, the eldest son. Then, as the eldest daughter in my family, should I also send 2 million won to my parents' house? My mother-in-law immediately flared up. What? Why would you take care of your family? You spoke well for once. I see you've been sending money to your parents' house regularly. Why do you send money there? When you get married, you should prioritize your in-laws. How dare you think about sending an allowance to your parents' house? Are you trying to feed your family with my son's money? I won't stand for it. Mother, you must speak correctly. Do you know the difference between my husband's salary and mine? It's only a few tens of thousands of a few dollars. Our salaries are similar. Should I tell you both to take care of your respective families separately? Would that satisfy you? Honestly, we only send a fixed amount to my parents, but you constantly call, saying you need this and that. Do you know how much money we've spent that way? Can I do the same for my family? No, you can't. So what are you saying now? Am I riding on my husband's success? We both work hard for this life. No, I just meant it kindly, so that you won't be burdened with our retirement later. Then, let's make sure the other family members are not burdened either. Yes, if everyone does the same, then we'll join in. Everyone fell silent. Of course, they would. Which of the siblings-in-law would sacrifice their salary for the family? Seeing their reaction, I became even more certain that I should not increase the allowance. There you have it, Mother. Since none of the other family members agree, I don't think it's fair for the burden to fall only on us. Increasing the allowance is difficult right now. Please keep that in mind and don't bring it up again. I ended the conversation firmly and coldly. On the way home, my husband grumbled that I had been too harsh, but I told him I had to be firm, because I knew they would try to pressure him into giving them all the money. Of course, my in-laws acted coldly towards me afterward. They didn't consider all we had done for them and behaved like this, which made me feel hurt and angry. Around that time, things weren't great between my husband and me, either. He started changing his car and buying expensive designer clothes. Since his income was clearly limited, I asked him about it once, thinking it seemed excessive. My husband seemed more flustered than I expected. Honey, what is that? A new one. The one you bought last time was also very expensive. Where did you get the money from? Oh, no, I just bought it cheap online. Where would I get money from? And are you checking the price of every single thing I buy? I didn't check it, I found out by chance. That shirt costs hundreds of thousands of hundreds of dollars. Did you really buy that cheaply? Yeah, I bought it from a place where it was inexpensive, and I saved my allowance to buy it, so don't lecture me. At first, I just shrugged it off, assuming his spending had just gotten a little out of control. However, as time went by, things started to feel really strange. Then one day, on a holiday, I took my husband's car to go to the mart. After dropping the kids off at my parents', I noticed the car was messy, so I decided to clean the interior for him. While cleaning, I found an unexpected item on the passenger seat side. A brand of lipstick I had never used. It had clearly been used and definitely wasn't mine. Also, it couldn't have been my mother-in-law or sister-in-law, as they wouldn't use that color or brand, and they hadn't ridden in the car recently. Something felt wrong. My husband's recent secretive behavior made me even more suspicious, so I decided to check the dashcam footage right away. When I listened to the conversation that came out of the dashcam, I was horrified. A strange woman's voice was talking. Honey, where are we going to eat today? Today, I've found an amazing place for you, darling. I'm going to treat you to the full course. Wow, you're the best, honey. The best. The voice was definitely my husband's. Listening further, it was clear their relationship was not just a casual one. I struggled with what to do. Should I confront him immediately, or should I investigate further? I thought about it for a long time. The thought that occurred to me was that if I brought it up with just this evidence, he would deny everything. So, I pretended not to know, went home, and started digging for evidence. Through my investigation, I discovered that my husband was doing something truly terrible. It turned out he was indeed having an affair, and the woman he was cheating with was none other than his close friend's ex-wife. I was utterly horrified that he was having an affair with a friend's ex-wife. I had even attended their wedding. How could he cheat with that woman? So, I immediately went to the mistress's art academy in the neighborhood. As soon as I showed up, she seemed to realize what was happening and panicked terribly. Oh, how did you find me here? I guess you know why I know, don't you? How dare you mess around with someone else's husband? And you call yourself a teacher? A teacher? Oh, sister-in-law, it's not what you think, not what I think. I know everything. I've already gathered all the evidence, so don't even think about denying it. I started shouting and venting my anger. The mistress tried to stop me, but her words were already heard by many people. Eventually, the news reached the parents of the students at the art academy. The rumor spread quickly on the local community site, and I heard the parents were all demanding refunds, causing a huge scene. When the situation became a complete mess, the mistress came to find me herself. I was heading home from work when she was waiting for me at the entrance of the apartment building. As soon as she saw me, she fell to her knees and begged, "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry. I truly made a mistake. Please, just don't come looking for me anymore. I need to make a living. I support myself with this job since I got divorced, so please, just stop looking for me. I'll break up with your husband." Break up? Why break up? You decided to sleep with a married man, why are you breaking up? No, don't break up. I'm not going to live with a man like that anyway, so you two can live together happily. Perhaps she cared about her reputation, I'm not sure, but the mistress came to me, apologized, and begged again and again. My husband, however, was shamelessly insolent. When he found out I knew about the affair and had flipped the art academy upside down, he immediately ran away from home that day. After that, he only sent me text messages asking for a divorce, and never showed up. He didn't seem concerned about the children and gave no contact for a long time. Then, one holiday, he showed up with his entire family to pick up his belongings. Seeing that situation made me so dumbfounded and angry. But what truly infuriated me was the attitude of my in-laws. My mother-in-law, brothers-in-law, and sister-in-law all came to pack my husband's things and then mocked me as they left. "A stingy woman like you is no longer needed. The girl who runs the art academy is educated and wouldn't be as ill-mannered as you. She wouldn't act the way you did. A person's heart can change, you know. Why did you have to chase after her and ruin everything?" That's right, sister-in-law, you'll regret letting go of a man like my brother. You should have treated us better. Why else would he cheat? I know, sister-in-law. What are you going to do? Now, you're going to have a scarlet letter as a divorcee. How embarrassing. They quickly packed his things and walked out, and I genuinely didn't even want to exchange words with them. It was absurd that my brother-in-law and sister-in-law were talking like that, ignoring the fact that their brother was becoming a divorced man. But what disgusted me the most was my mother-in-law, who, as an adult and a parent, should have scolded her son for his wrongdoings but instead sided with him. I was utterly done with them. Afterward, I filed a lawsuit against the mistress, and a divorce lawsuit against my husband. I ensured I received the proper amount of child support based on my husband's income and got my fair share of the property division. My in-laws made the ridiculous claim that my husband should receive more in the property division, but since my contribution was undeniable, I was able to get proper recognition and the correct split of assets. I simply didn't want to be entangled with those people anymore. My own family was sad, but they reassured me, saying it was better to end it sooner rather than later. After that, I sold the house and moved with my children to my parents' neighborhood. My parents took care of the children for me, and I was able to return to my daily life quickly. But, as they say, people who commit a crime are bound to be punished. Exactly 2 years later, I got a call from my ex-husband. He usually never contacted me, but he was completely drunk and rambling, and what he said was strange. "Honey, I might go to jail. I want to see our kids one last time. Can I see them?" "What are you talking about? Jail? What's going on?" "I embezzled company funds, and now I'm being investigated. I might get a severe punishment and go to jail." It turned out my ex-husband was facing punishment for embezzling funds from his research work. He had apparently continued to meet the mistress after our divorce, but since the news of the affair had spread so widely, how could she keep running her art academy? She had to close it down, and my ex-husband must have felt responsible for her. but the cost of that responsibility was astronomical. I had heard that the mistress had severe spending problems, even when she was married to my ex-husband's friend. So, what difference would it make meeting my ex-husband? He couldn't handle the expenses, so he embezzled company funds, and that's why everything blew up. Hearing my ex-husband's words, I was truly appalled. A person should get their act together. Not only did he destroy his family, but he even embezzled company funds. I thought, how remarkable. Do you know what happened to my ex-husband? Faced with the risk of severe punishment, he had to pay compensation by using the money from the asset division, taking out personal credit loans, and even draining his parents' entire retirement fund. Thanks to having covered some of the damages, his sentence ended up being a suspended sentence. He didn't go to jail, thankfully, but the problem was he was fired from the company. Honestly, what company would hire someone who had embezzled funds? He couldn't find a job and was struggling financially, so he supposedly used up all the remaining money to open a chicken restaurant, but that failed within a year, and now he is living as a credit delinquent. He and the mistress broke up a long time ago. She liked him when he had a good job and money, but who would like him when he was broke? He lost everything and is now living like a beggar, leeching off his parents. Sometimes, when my eldest son comes back after visiting his former in-laws, what he says is often shocking. "Mom, can I just not go to Grandma's house anymore? Grandma and Dad always fight when I go, and I don't want to go. I'll tell them I'm not going." Why? Why do they keep fighting? I don't know. Grandma is always yelling at Dad to leave. They still invite my eldest son, their grandson, to visit, but they're still fighting in front of the child, which is completely absurd. Now that even my son doesn't want to see him anymore, what can I do? Honestly, I feel like I've done everything I could. In the end, my ex-husband, who was unfaithful to his family, and succumbed to a moment of pleasure, has fallen into ruin. Also, the in-laws, who thought only of my son. My son is the best, saw that best son cause a disaster that instantly shattered their family. They constantly insulted and belittled others, and now they have received their just desserts. I believe the harsh words they spoke have returned to them like arrows. I hope they reflect now, and are more careful with the words they speak in the future. I am currently working hard and raising my children well. My eldest son has grown up to be dependable, and my youngest daughter is so cute and affectionate. She is my source of healing. I often meet up with my family and my 2 children, and I've never been happier. My parents are healthy, and both my siblings are doing well in their respective lives, which makes me proud. I hope things continue this happily, nothing more, nothing less. I'm sure some of you, who are listening to this story, have experienced similar situations. After going through this ordeal, I truly believe that poetic justice exists in this world. I witnessed firsthand that people who belittle and look down on others eventually fall into the same miserable situation. So, those who disrespected you will also receive the punishment they deserve. Perhaps not immediately, but eventually. Therefore, please don't torment yourselves. I hope you will live for your own life and happiness. That's the one thing I wanted to share by sending in my story. Many people are hurting because of the pain caused by others. I hope my story can give you a little strength. I wish everyone the best in this difficult economy, and I will end my story here. Thank you for listening.